everybody. It's John Kraska with Every Library Institute. We are part of a big conversation in this country here at Every Library and the Every Library Institute because we have a couple of big ideas once in a while about how libraries should be funded, how government should be structured. We're also very fortunate here at Every Library to have big conversations with very smart people. And we have recently put out a new issue, a special issue of our journal, The Political Librarian. The Political Librarian is intended to be a public policy, tax policy, education policy place for the profession to think through some of those big ideas out loud. And up until recently, we've been doing regular issues. In 2025, we had the pleasure of doing 2 special issues. And the reason is that suddenly we woke up on a Monday, I think it was, in 2025, with one president, and we went to bed with another, and everything became very different. As we all know, we've been living through it. And regardless of your political persuasion or the perspective that you bring in terms of party, the living through it has either been a joyful disruption or something that has been deleterious both to the people that librarians want to serve, the institutions where we want to hang out and spend our time, and to the profession itself. And that's our perspective here at Every Library. I mean, we have a political action committee for libraries on the Every Library side. We have a public policy, tax policy, education policy think tank for libraries on the Institute side. It's no secret. We wanted to invite conversations through the Political Librarian that we're going to be very frank and very direct about the current state of play at the end of 2025 into a big conversation about how do we confront, how do we address, how do we accommodate from time to time in order to get to a place where we can continue to serve the people that we want to serve in the institutions that we would like to call home for a profession that does a lot of good work in the world. To that end, I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Nicole Cooke and Dr. Aisha Johnson, our 2 co-editors for our special issue. Their second special issue of 2025 it was called Weaponized Politics and Dismantled Policies. We're going to take a little time today on MLK Day to introduce the issue, to talk through some of the great things that happened in the issue, and also to contextualize the next couple of Mondays. Monday at 1 o'clock Eastern time through March 2nd will be the broadcast, the live broadcasts with authors of different papers in the special issue. And of course, everything's available on demand immediately hereafter. The coordinated political attacks that we're seeing, the coordinated political attacks on equity and inclusion are unprecedented in modern history, but there's a resonant point at several times in American history that I think is very important for us to be discussing. These executive orders that are happening right now from the Trump administration are reshaping public policy, forcing institutions to justify things as basic as work on diversity and equity and inclusion, and the either redefinition or erasure of those stories is something that we need to hold a place against. So co-editors, Dr. Nicole A. Cooke and Dr. Aisha M. Johnson. Dr. Cooke is the Augusta Baker Endowed Chair and Professor at the University of South Carolina's School of Library and Information Sciences. Dr. Johnson is Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Outreach at the Georgia Institute of Technology Library. Together, this issue, thank you. To be able to have a conversation about DEI where we don't have to use code words, where we don't have to use euphemisms, that we can talk about the coordinated executive actions, whether it's the Trump administration or certain governors or certain state legislatures, or God bless America, county commissioners and city councils. Dr. Cooke, Dr. Johnson, why now? Why with Every Library also, but why now for this issue for you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, John. I'll answer the second question first, why Every Library? Everyone should know that Every Library and the Political Librarian were the only choices, was the only consideration for this conversation. I had the pleasure of being part of the first special issue of 2025 and really just had such a great experience. And it was just what you just said. We didn't have to sugarcoat, we didn't have to censor ourselves. And we knew that for this type of conversation, that's what we needed. And we knew that that's what we would get with the Political Librarian. And so
I'm edified about that. And That's been the whole idea since we put
Yeah.
this thing together.
Absolutely.
Almost, it's been 12 years now
Yeah.
since we started publishing it.
Yeah, yeah. And to the first part of your question, there's an article that shall not be named. If folks are interested, they can read the articles in the special issue. But when that article came out, it was just like, holy hell, what is going on? And like the group chats started buzzing, and some of the Facebook groups started buzzing, and it was just one of those things that I will say, just speak for the two of us, we could not let that article go without response. And when things started buzzing, I think I texted Aisha later that day. I said, we're doing this. We're going to do this special issue because this can't stand. And we're academics. That's how we respond. That's how we fight back. And so fortunately, you and Martha and the good people and the good team at Every Library, we were able to get this set up really quickly, actually. And, when the group chats and things started buzzing, people were, saying, I want to write. And in the end, some of those people did. We did wind up putting out a call, and we just got an amazing array of people who wanted to respond and, talk about the executive orders and some other things. And I'll let Aisha talk a little bit about that process. But really what we wanted to do was have these voices be able to come in their own voice, right? That was another part that was really important to us and to working with the political librarian, is that we can have new authors. We can have folks who don't necessarily write for a living, right? And so as part of this process, it took a little cajoling with some people, right? Because, they have so much to say, but they felt like, I can't do this, I'm not a writer, et cetera. So, but their voices and their opinions and their thoughts really are and were and are so critical to this discussion.
Dr. Johnson, what are you thinking about coming into this beginning of this conversation with the profession?
Absolutely agree with everything Dr. Cooke noted, because when she texted me, she's like, you were doing this? Yep. Let's handle it. No problem. I already got a bunch of stuff to say, but we are very much so about giving the practitioner a voice. And I think with Every Librarian, and specifically the political librarian, that's why we were like, oh, most definitely. Like, there was no other consideration for any other platform or venue, because we know we wouldn't have to sugarcoat anything. And she and I are not those types of practitioners, leaders, and scholars to sugarcoat, because that's not how you call things out, and that's not how you warrant change. Calling a thing is absolutely what we do. But we also knew that we would have the grace to allow the non-scholar practitioner to become that scholar. We're always about those who are doing the practice, telling us what's actually happening on the ground, because these policies are directly affecting you. We love our PhDs. We do. We love our PhDs. But the reality of the situation is a lot of our professors are not doing the work during this administration. And while they are educating our future practitioners and leaders to be scholars, we need to know what's happening in the practice as these policies are being forced implementation, because that is also going to inform the curriculum too. So if we want to have a practical professional being produced in our LIS programs, in our iSchools, we need our practitioners to speak. And we knew, Nicole and I, Dr. Cooke and I knew we would have the patience for that, but we also knew Every Library and the political librarian would too.
I'm edified to hear that. That was the whole hope. Whenever we're working with a group on a policy issue, public policy issue, tax policy issue, education policy issue, we always ask whether or not the issue is supportive of their value system or objectionable to their value system. It puts a fine point on whether or not we should be involved. Because if they don't feel it's supportive, if it's going to build the profession, if it's going to build the services that they're trying to do, then why are we coming in as a political action committee? And likewise, if they are not offended by it and they're just monitoring it, that's nice. Keep an eye on it. There is both hope and there is deep concern in the pieces that you selected for this special issue. And I've got to tell you, you're early to market. You're early to market on this. And I think prescient. You're ahead of when most people are paying attention. Because from the time that you had a couple of text messages and said, hey, let's go, to today, it's only been a couple of weeks when you get right down to it. And I'm glad we could respond as quickly as we did. But what we've seen happen because of the executive orders, the Trump administration's executive orders, dismantling DEI and going after human beings through the structure of government, is that in higher education already, 2 of the 7 regional accrediting organizations, the groups that accredit universities, not just LIS programs, but universities, have taken out the DEI from their top-level institutional accreditation. This is a story that I think that both of you are very early to want to tell, and I appreciate that very much. In this issue, what did you hope to make visible? Or are there certain authors that you want to lift up?
So go ahead, Nicole. Go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't know that I want to lift up any authors specifically, but just to say we had such a collection, a great collection of different experiences, different voices, different types of librarians. And that was really wonderful to see, because to your point, this really does impact everyone.
Mm-hmm. So if instead of lifting up individuals, the concepts then, Dr. Cooke, what did you want to make visible through the issue?
You know, the themes came up after we worked with the authors. So we had, the call for proposals, and, we just wanted to see what was going to come in. I mean, we had people that we kind of texted on the side and say, hey, you're going to, come write with us. But then after that, they really did naturally kind of fall into, these categories. And I'll let, Dr. Johnson, continue on with that. Mm-hmm. But everything really just worked pretty seamlessly. And, we didn't have many edits, right? I mean, as part of also cultivating these new voices and having people feel like they can write this type of work. It was really just for, clarity and flow. It wasn't, certainly there was no, you have to change this or, anything like that. Mm-hmm. Dr. Johnson?
Absolutely. So no, nobody in particular we want to lift up. We are so grateful to every single contributor, every single voice. And one of the things that Dr. Cooke and I talked about early on was our editing is for consciousness. Our editing is for flow. It's for, so people can comprehend what is being said, not to police. Mm-hmm. And shape or form, because that is literally what the special issue is about, right? Mm-hmm. The anti-policing and ultimately our theme is intellectual freedom, it's access, it's representation and inclusion. It is the very thing that we stand on as a profession in LIS. So that's really what you're going to see throughout the issue. And I think it's really so special because of the contributors that stepped up and stepped forth with their individual takes on, I think we covered public, we covered archives, we covered the entire glam. Mm-hmm. And we were so happy to see these different voices and these different points of view. And I think having them see Dr. Cooke and I partnering with every library and knowing it was a safe space, mm-hmm. knowing they can put their name on it. Mm-hmm. And if they chose not to, that's okay too. But majority knowing they can put their name on that. And because we did offer anonymity, we did offer, you don't have to put your name on this. Mm-hmm. If you want to, we will still publish. And, people knew that this partnership was safe in this time frame, in this time period. I think that is critical. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of us do work for government-based organizations, right?
Yeah.
public libraries, academic libraries, we work for state institutions too. So we are indeed government employees. And at the time when we was pushing this shutdown, mass firing, it was risky. So we really didn't know what we were going to get, but we were so grateful when they start flowing in. We're like, okay, this is good. We would have did it by ourselves. Don't get me wrong, but we were so grateful for the advocacy that people were willing to put forth.
Well, I think that people forget when there's an editorial conversation happening that there's two colors of the pen. There's the red pen, which nobody wants to see. Oh my God, I got a lot of edits. But the green pen is intended to be about how do we improve, enhance, discover together. And there was a lot more green pen here than there was red pen, and I appreciate that very much. The other component of it for us is the ethos around anonymity. And I'm glad that you all embrace that. I'm executive director of this organization. I'm not in the editorial team. I'm on the masthead because I have to be, I guess, to get an ISSN, but I have no idea who these people were. And that's a very important situation. There's a firewall here because the vulnerability of putting yourself out, and the peril in some places of naming something that is a truth that not everybody agrees is a problem. There's some real bravery here. Can we talk a little bit about academic detachment? I believe Dr. Cooke, you mentioned a moment ago about how some of our colleagues are not necessarily as timely as you are in identifying this, but the profession in general and academia in general. I remember very clearly when the anti-CRT legislation came out in Florida and the Don't Say Gay bill came out in Florida. And then it was brought to the courts, and it was pulled back, but not taken away. And then the state of Alabama, instituted their own version of it. And I went looking for guidance. And I'm not trying to throw Alabama institutions of higher education under the bus here, but I went looking for guidance from their general counsels about implementation of that very heinous, in my opinion, law. And I couldn't find very much. The institutions that did it were also very measured. How are you seeing right now as leaders in the LIS community, in the library sector, how are you seeing us showing up for these truth-telling conversations, not just specific essays that were in the special issue?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think what I've seen the most of are the opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So we've got, I'll just say here in South Carolina, we've got a very active library constituency who are at the State House, who are, speaking truth to power to the state superintendent of education, who has explicitly targeted our school librarians. They don't care. They're out there doing what they do, right? And then you have the others who are essentially bending the knee, right? They're obeying in advance. So, obviously there's going to be some folks in the middle, but you do very much see these opposite ends. And I think in 2025, I'm sure we'll have the same conversation in 2026. Dr. Johnson and I and so many others are still having the argument that libraries are not neutral. And we're seeing so many people continue to fall back on that. And, I get it when I do talks and things, I tell you, like I'm not trying to get you fired. Like, I understand that you all have bills. I have bills. Everybody likes their health insurance, that kind of thing. And, like Dr. Johnson mentioned, so many of us are state or government employees in some way, shape, or form. So I get it. But I also tell them, silence makes you complicit. I give them all the cliches. I give them quotes. I'm a librarian at heart. I give them the references. There are so many ways that they can still contribute, even if it means not literally being out on the corner of Main Street with a sign, right? So, in January 2026, we're in kind of this really odd time. We've got a woman being murdered by ICE. And folks out on the streets, as they should be, right? But with the realization that everyone cannot do that, especially folks that are BIPOC or have marginalized identities. Like, it literally is not safe. I get it, right? But are you writing for this special issue, right? Are you contacting your elected officials? Like, there's so many ways to participate. And I think, in addition to the fear of it all, I really do believe, that the way that this administration floods the zone, with the
Yes.
propaganda, with the misinformation, with the disinformation, people are damn near paralyzed, in terms of, I just can't do anything. And I'm just going to go to bed, or I'm going to bury my nose in a book, or what have you. And, we need folks, particularly in our profession, to continue to stand up and essentially find their lane, and be consistent.
Well, you did contribute, and I would assume it was a double-blind sample when you contributed an essay called "We Will Not Be Erased: A Militant Manifesto for Libraries."
Yeah.
And you were growing on, or you were leveraging a lecture that you delivered last year, and the consistent through line back to the first special issue, back at the beginning of, or the first half of 2025. The idea that information is power, and care for those who deserve information is not optional. And I want to lift that up. And the idea that there's a declaration that's been made through this issue, but also through your essay, Dr. Cooke, about survival and resistance and liberation for LIS programs.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to you for that. I think that you rang a bell.
Thank you. And again, that talk that I gave, that I converted into an essay, I can't just give that anywhere, right? And so again, to, be grateful and show gratitude to every library and the political librarian that I didn't have to shortchange that. And just, I want to acknowledge that I have a lot of privilege in the profession. I have rank, I have tenure, I have these things. And so, that's also something I want to put out to our colleagues, to, use the platform when you have it.
I concur. Dr. Johnson, I don't mean to call you out too on the essay that you submitted. And again, I think it was probably a double blind. I don't know who edited whose or how that all gets done. And I don't want to look under the hood. But citation, please, executive orders, DEI, and the fight for intellectual freedom that you produced. You talk about a couple things in here, and the cumulative impact of the executive orders, DEI, and the fights against both intellectual freedom, academic freedom, and free expression. The dual impacts here are an erosion, ideological conformity through policy, and structural disempowerment through defunding and censorship. And I got to tell you, Dr. Johnson, you hit that on the head, because a lot of folks are talking about censorship, but where the money is determines whether or not we can continue to grow.
I think, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So one, the citation, please. These things are. Dr. Cooke knows she'll get random text messages from me. Oh, I know what I'm gonna call this. I know what it's going to do. The citation, please, is a ploy. It's really a play on the Say Her Name campaign. Oh,
yes.
It really is. It's a play on the Say Her Name campaign, because if we're going to call something out, let's call it. Let's say exactly what the problem is. Remembrance, right? We're going to talk about this person who was wrongly unjust, but let's get to the root of it. Say her name. And that's what I wanted to do with citation, please. I wanted to call out the exact executive orders because I have a background in my undergrad's in political science. I was actually really excited to write this piece because I get it and I understand the workings of it. But I also recognize my privileged position as an executive leader in a very large research institution that not only is privileged within itself, but also within the state of research institutions, right? And my privilege in not only my position, because they know who they hired, right? And they support that. I only work for organizations that align with my values and morals. So this particular response to the article that inspired this special issue really kind of vexed me in a way of the things that you're talking about is the very root. These are our LIS values, and we do this so people can be sovereign. So people can have intellectual freedom, exercise academic freedom without worrying about our services, our practices, our collections being used as pawns through funding. And having that access and that experience as an executive leader at this level, this rank at such an institution, I know how the sausage is made. And I understand how funding in itself indeed can be a pawn. I don't have that experience at my institution. It's extremely supportive of our library, but I've seen it, and I've worked for institutions where, well, if you don't, then I won't. Or library, very commonly in the public sector, Dr. Cooke and I started in the public sector. We have a privilege where we can use these voices that if someone in the public sector did it in the same manner, they can be fired. They can risk the funding aspect of their organization. It can be, that county funding, when it gets funny, the public library is on the chopping block, but the public library is the very thing that every single person in your community needs.
That's right. Now, in your essay, you also do talk very clearly about individual rights and collective responsibility. And I think that our sector has been very comfortable talking about the First Amendment. We're not as comfortable talking about the 14th Amendment, and the idea that the civil rights side of this and the civil rights protections, every campaign of anti-censorship and that we work on, we also try and say the words out loud about anti-discrimination. And that component of it in an academic setting where it's title protections like Title IX and Title VI, in a public library setting where it's either you can look at it as Title II or Title III for public accommodation, or even Title VI on the Civil Rights Act of 1964, saying that if you take federal funding, you shall not discriminate. These are I'm hoping that a series of essays and a series of conversations like the special issue will help our sector find some bravery in that. And the citation, please, Dr. Johnson, I think that we need to make sure that we're doing that in a way with real conviction.
Absolutely. I love conviction. Listen, I love calling it out because I think we've been complicit. And in a manner of, like Dr. Cooke said, if you're not doing something, you are complying. You are, I thought it was just, I was wrapping up this article as so many things was happening, even with our, the changes happening with our own professional organization. And I wanted to, if you notice, I wrapped this article up in a declaration. And in that declaration, I called for the organization that we pay as members to take a stance, to be an advocate, to say something, because your very membership that upholds these values of all things access, information literacy, intellectual freedom are being targeted. The very people who have led and ran this organization, the very people who have watched it evolve and retreat and evolve and retreat are tired of this song and dance. And want, the organization to say, hey, this is not right. Not, well, if you need help, we're coming up with some guidance. No, call it out. What is the risk that you have to take when you're talking about your membership upholding the values in which you set forth in all the ethics, all the Bill of Rights? So what's happening there? And I'm very much so, I'm very passionate about this profession, but I'm also teaching the new leaders. I'm also teaching the next generation of advocates. We're not going to do this forever. All of us are not going to do this forever. But what I would like to do is lead by example. So when I pass this off, they're not saying, well, what do I do now?
Well, let's talk about that, because somebody shows up to the profession, the LIS profession. They go to a MLS program, an MLS, an MLIS, an I school, maybe an AI school now in some places. I know that's a whole other special issue. But the pipeline of humans who want to do this craft of librarianship, who want to be in that position, whether it's front of house, back of house, archives, museums, all the overlays. They show up they show up for a couple different reasons. And then there's a scholarship to praxis pipeline that I don't know if it is robust enough right now to handle the current moment. Do you have advice for our colleagues about that? You're both shaking your head no.
Well, it's not. We're shaking our heads no to the fact that it's not robust enough. This is one of the reasons.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
This is one of the reasons I stand so firm and convicted in the scholar practitioner model. Because again, the practitioners know there's a continuum. We have a gap, particularly because I tell all of my colleagues, all of our mentees and everybody, our peers, we have to get our students understanding while they're matriculating that you need to write, which is also tricky in the age of AI. Right? That's really tricky in the age of AI to get some authenticity in that writing, but it's really about helping them build that confidence and using their voice and being brave and encouraging them. But I really do believe that starts in the matriculation through the graduate program, because we are going to have more practitioners than PhDs.
Sure.
By the very nature, right? And that's in any industry. But we're going to have more practitioners than the PhDs. But it is actually the practitioners who should be informing the curriculum. That's how we produce practical professionals. So I need them to write. If you're in my class or if I'm mentoring you, you're going to write because I need your voice. Your voice represents, Nicole and I are both Black women. We have different backgrounds. We have different life experiences. And guess what? Both our voices are equally valuable because there are people who we share those backgrounds, experiences, and whatever other comparable there is. And with that being said, we're still not mainstream.
Yeah. I mean, I sit here with a white Suburban. I got a beard. I'm not wearing a suit coat today because I'm sitting around at home. We're just having a little podcast here. But put the suit coat on this guy, like it opens so many doors. And I know that very clearly. But I also have a perspective, and I also have a perspective on this sector, on how we should be structuring government, about how we should be taxing ourselves. And I'm glad to be in a dialogue like that. So,
can I, John,
please.
Just to say to your point, this is allyship. This is being an accomplice, I'll say. And this is what we need, right? So that's super important. And just to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Johnson just said, I'm going to take it from the other end. I don't have my students write as much because of AI, but we talk about social justice storytelling, right? So how are you going to use your voice, verbally, orally? But I do want to, you said, what's your advice earlier in that question? I need the funders. I don't want to call them out by name, but we need more funding and scholarships for PhDs in library and information science. Now, we're not saying that those numbers by any stretch should match practitioner scholars, but if we don't get that pipeline in order, we're not going to have any LIS programs, and that's for the master students as well. So we just finished another round of a scholarship. I'm not going to name any names, but this particular doctoral fellowship comes up once every 5 to 7 years, and we might maybe get 5 to 7 out of each round. Like, that's not enough. And like Aisha said, when retirement comes, I'm gone. I want to be on a boat somewhere. I want to relax.
I'll come visit. Yeah.
Okay, good. But we need to, and we need, to Dr. Johnson's point, we need some of these practitioner scholars to come into the PhD program because they have that experience, they have that understanding. We've, no shade to my colleagues, but we've got too many folks teaching in these programs who have never worked in libraries, and that is a problem. We're
not an organization over at Every Library that tells the librarian how to be a better librarian. We try and help them be better politicians. But some of that is articulating that value system. Some of that is articulating the policy points that come out of it. And when you get right down to it, it is what action should follow scholarship that we're trying to help encourage here. All right, I got one eye on our podcast clock. and wanted to check in with you with sort of a high-level closing set of thoughts here. The beautiful thing about publishing, at least still in the United States of America, is that an issue like this gets to be put into the corpus. It gets to be put into the OERs. It gets to be put into scholarship, which means it's going to be around for a long time. You've helped create something that I think is going to end up being a historical document for the 2026 era. It's going to be a historical touchstone. I mean, I sometimes will try and publish just statistics in the Political Librarian so that somebody can find it in 20 years. If I can ask you, if this is that historical document for 2025 for the profession and for the LIS programs, what is your hope for what it captures for the future of librarianship? And I did not prep you with this one, so you get a moment to reflect.
So for me, I think one of the things is to use your voice, and that it's okay, and that there is a place in this corpus, as you refer to it, for different voices, that are minoritized. I'll put it that way. That we need more people, scholar practitioners, just really anyone that is an LIS worker. We need them to speak up, right? So again, use their voice. The other thing that I will, just kind of lift up is the editorial for the special issue, where I highlight the positive uses of anger.
That's right.
And, really where we are in 2025, and seemingly we are still here in 2026. There is so much to be angry about. And instead of retreating into that anger, I would challenge and encourage people to use that for good, right? And there's so many different ways to do that. So I really want people, and I mean, we're all going to be afraid. There's so much to be fearful about. I'm not saying, to ignore that or to deny that, but how can you channel that into, this positive change that we need going forward?
Thank you for that. Dr. Johnson, the historical record.
The historical record, and building on Dr. Cooke's point, utilizing your voice, never shy away. Never shy away, because again, our voices are our fingerprints, right? And it is representative of so many layers. That is us and how we are affected. But if you're thinking it, someone else's too. But also, don't shy away from your anger, and don't shy away from anything you don't agree with. No, like any good political science undergrad or grad, or PhD, that it's about the value system. You said it before. And that if your value system is being affirmed and supported, then let's get behind it and push, But if it's not, let's get in front of it and push. I think that's really important. So, Dr. Nicole Cooke, Dr. Aisha Johnson, thank you both for editing Weaponized Politics and Dismantled Policies. I'm going to put up the link one more time here. For thepoliticallibrarian.org at the end of 2025, the beginning of 2026, to have this conversation where we're about 300 days since the inauguration, and a whole raft of executive orders that got dropped that day and subsequently. We're about 300 days until the midterms, when America, I think, has a moment to have a little bit of a reckoning about whether or not they like where this was going. And sitting here at this point is not a teeter-totter or a seesaw. It's certainly not the center of a merry-go-round. It is, though, it's a deep breath point, and a chance to be able to spend some time then vocalizing after that deep breath what we're trying to do out loud. So thank you both for your time today, and for the rest of it. Everyone, as we're watching today, please remember that this is a shareable on-demand recording as soon as it's over. And every Monday between now and the 2nd of March, 1 p.m. Eastern, conversations with folks that we wanted to highlight in particular, not to the exclusion of everybody else, from the special issue of the Political Librarian. Thanks for joining us today, Dr. Cooke, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I always put up at the end the title card, and then we wave while it's coming up. Okay? Good stuff. And then let me hit end. Good to be with you today.